Allow me to introduce to you Claire West. Claire West says she's a painter who paints because it makes her happy. She hopes that it does so for the viewer as well. She says, I love color and enjoy exploring its contrast and its vibrant and intense nature. We will be using Claire West as our inspiration for our landscape today. You will need a paper, some chalk pastels, or markers, or crayons. So we're going to start by folding our paper about 2/3 the way down. And we're just going to lay out our chalk pastels or crayons or markers. And we're going to just kind of scribble in some color. So I'm using chalk pastels here. And I'm just laying in my color. Okay, just my warm colors. And you can use cool colors too if you choose instead of the warm colors. So we're just laying that all in, and it doesn't have to be perfect and neat because we're going to rub over it with some cornstarch. Now when you get your cornstarch ready, you're going to need 1 tablespoon of cornstarch and 2 tablespoons of water. You're going to gently massage over your colors. And if you have anything light, like I do, that yellow, it's a good thing to wipe your finger off or else it might blend. So have a paper towel next to you as well. And just massage over your colors and get them to blend. So what it's doing to these colors is getting it to behave a little bit like paint. Now the same effect will happen if you use markers. You may use the cornstarch mixture over them to help them kind of move around a little bit more. And if you choose watercolor, you don't have to use the cornstarch mixture because you already have some water helping your paint to move. And crayon, you don't need the cornstarch either. Okay, what if you wanted to do all of your colors and not just warms or not just cools? You decide. So you can fold your paper in half. How about a rainbow? So when you're making this rainbow, you are using all of the colors, but you want to make thick lines of color, not just a skinny line of color, but go over it again and make them a little bit thicker. So I'm going in with red, orange, yellow, green, and then I'm going to use a light blue and a dark blue and a purple. You can use whatever you have. If you are using watercolors, be careful. Your colors might blend into one another if you don't give them a bit of time to dry. Or you can always leave a little space between them as well. Okay, get that in there. Now I'm going to work on the sky. So I'm just scribbling in some light blue, some dark blue. If you wanted to put in some clouds, that would be up to you. And I'm just going to go over these later. Now, the other choice is cool colors. So same kind of thing. Scribbling in there, not making it look real neat. Overlap them if you'd like. Now, overlapping just means to have a color touch another color. And it's kind of like on top of it. Okay. So we can take that, put that aside. All right, now on to the land. I'm going to scribble in my cool colors since I already used some warm colors in the sky. I could add in a warm color if I choose, and I'm just making some grasses. Now, whoa, what is happening here? So what I've done is I've gotten my cornstarch mixture out, and now I'm massaging over my colors, just like I did for the sky. So you're going to do the same technique that you used on your sky for your land. Okay, no, what about a rainbow? What do I do with that? Well, go over each color individually. So that means one color by itself. You don't need to blend them all into each other. You just rub in the direction the colors are going. Okay, I don't want to smear all over the place because it's just going to end up like a pile of mud. So go over each color separately. And then when you get down to your sky, you're going to do the same technique. You're going to rub those colors. You're not blending them into your rainbow. You're just blending the sky color into the sky color. All right. Almost there. Okay. Now, let's practice some techniques for our background. So what I want to try out is painting some trees. And they're just going to be blobs of color. And they're going to be in the landscape. So what I want to do is get some green or even some blues or whatever colors you want to use for your trees. Those are up to you. And I'm just making some blobs of color. Now some will be small and some will be big because some are going to be off in the distance. And then what I do is I add a little bit of contrast. I'm adding a little bit of white to my tree. Okay, here's another one. Another color that you could also use is maybe if you have a green tree, you could try adding in a little bit of yellow or even some dark blue. Okay, so play around with this and see what you can do. All right, so once you feel like you have those trees, you can practice, once they're dry, you're going to practice doing the tree trunk and the branches. So I start with a little dot at the bottom of the tree and I just make these curved lines for my tree. Those are the branches. And you can make them however you want, but you do need to have these dry. And you can see my paint is not quite dry. All right, so let's move on to the little bits of grasses and flowers that we're going to put in. So I just drew a skinny line with the brush. And the smaller the brush that you can find, probably the better. And I just drew a line and now I'm putting on some leaves for my plants. Okay, just put a little one there. All right, rinsing that brush and wiping that brush out. I'm grabbing some color, and whatever way you want to do your flowers is up to you. And sometimes here when I do these, my petals just kind of blend together and form kind of a little bit of a blob. So it doesn't matter. This one actually sort of looks like a flower. So whatever you feel like doing is up to you, but I do want you to practice a little bit before you go ahead and you start on your masterpiece. So also trying different colors and seeing what they look like with different flowers. And that one looked a little light, so I'm adding a bit more color. And just laying in those leaves. Okay, it's really a simple technique. Your leaves can look different than mine. They do not have to look exactly the way that I'm putting them on there, but I'm just adding a dash of color on either side. Okay, and I also want to have just a few colors for my flowers as well. And I don't have to do the same color, but you could. All right, back to our rainbow. Let's get it started. So this one was a little different. What I did was I did my foreground, my middle ground, and my background. Actually, I started with the background first, which would be the dark blue and the light blue. And then I added sand and a little bit of the reflection of the rainbow in the foreground of the paper. Okay, so that's all the way up front. Middle ground is the middle, background is the back. So here I am making some grasses. This is almost like it's in the dunes, the sand dunes. And if you've ever looked at a sand dune, you'll see that there are grasses up there. Sometimes there's little plants that are flowering. So I'm making these skinny lines. And I'm just going to start adding my petals after I get just another color in there. So you can see I'm adding some contrast. I'm also making it look like some are back a little bit further. I'm crossing some over others. I'm overlapping. Okay. All right, make sure you rinse that brush. You can begin to add your petals. And this is a spot where you really want to take your time because you are doing some smaller things. Adding in your color at the end for your flower. And you can do these in any way that you choose. You can go and get your grasses or plant stems in, and then do all your petals, and then add your flowers. It's really up to you. Now with this beach sort of scene, I might not do too many flowers. I might leave some grasses and maybe some that don't have petals. So again, thinking through what you want to show in your picture. Okay, with this one, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to work a little bit quicker here. So again, I did a background, middle ground, and a foreground, and I'm working in the foreground at this point, and I'm just laying in my first color. So I go and I get those little petals in as well. As soon as I put them in there, this seems to be the fastest way to do it. Then I'm going to choose a second color to add a little bit more variety. Get those petals in there, and then my third color, I'm going to make it even darker still. Just going to pop a little bit of it in there, and then I can go in and I can start adding in my flower petals. So whatever you choose for these guys is up to you. They can be big, they can be small. Okay, once you get that done, choose a color for your branches and tree trunks. I chose black. You can choose white. You could choose really whatever you'd want to. I feel like the black might be just a smidge dark for what I like here in the foreground.